So coming to the first category, a static discretization of quantitative attributes. Here we need to discretize the quantitative attributes statically. That means fixed intervals we need to assign. So that discretization process you have already seen in your second chapter. So that discretization is either by using concept hierarchies or by using data discretization techniques. Okay, and here after discretization, we can use the existing methods like a priori and FP growth for mining the multidimensional quantitative attributes. And here especially we need to go for the concept of data cube. Why? Because data cubes are most suited for representing the multidimensional association rules. And after that we need to go for the lattice of cuboids, which is nothing but the data cube. So with the help of this representation, we can able to mine the association rules easily from this. And after that we are having dynamic discretization of quantitative attributes. Coming to this process, here numerical attributes are dynamically discretized or clustered into bins based on the distribution of the data. So here this strategy treats the numeric attribute values as quantities rather than a predefined ranges or categories. Whereas in previous case, once the discretization process is completed, that item, for example, in previous case we have an item called income. We have discretized the income into the specific interval ranges based on the concept hierarchies, and after discretization, that income attribute become the categorical. But here not the case. Here even after discretization also, that particular attribute remains as a quantitative attribute, not as a categorical attribute. That's why we can make this process as dynamic. That means we can change the interval levels further to make it dynamic. So that's why it is called as a dynamic system. So here association rules mined from this approach are referred as dynamic quantitative association rules. So after making discretization dynamically, after making the things done in this way, the rules mined from this approach are referred as quantitative association rules. Quantitative in the sense, here the discretization process is dynamic and it belongs to the quantitative attribute, not belonging to the categorical attribute. That's why association rules mined from this approach are referred as dynamic quantitative association rules. And if you consider here, an example is age and income implies the bias. If a person X is of age 30 to 39, and if he belongs to the income of 40 to 50, he may buy the HD TV. So this kind of quantitative attributes are referred as two-dimensional quantitative attributes. And in this now in the present scenario, we are only considering about the two-dimensional quantitative attributes. That is by considering two quantitative attributes to the left hand side of the rule and one categorical attribute to the right hand side of the rule. So we are going to mine the association rules belonging to this category, this type in the sense these are called as the two-dimensional quantitative association rules. So here, because here rules contain two quantitative dimensions. So now the question is how to mine such rules. So here the solution is in the form of the ARCS, which is nothing but association rule clustering system. So now we are going for the, after making discretization, we are going for the ARCS for mining the two-dimensional quantitative association rules. So here our task is to mine the two-dimensional quantitative association rules. So here this approach maps the pair of quantitative attributes into 2D grid of tuples satisfying a given categorical attribute condition. Here is a 2D grid of tuples. Here in this approach of ARCS, this approach particularly maps the quantitative attributes. So here the quantitative attributes are income and age. So this approach maps the quantitative attributes into the 2D grid of tuples satisfying a given categorical attribute condition. So we need to project the values into this 2D grid. How to do that we will see. So after that, the grid is searched for clusters of points from which the association rules is generated. So this is the overall process. Now we need to enter into the in brief process. We are having 3 steps in this. First one is binning, and second one is finding frequent predicate sets, and the third one is clustering the association rules. Let's coming to the binning approach. Here, binning partitions the range of quantitative attributes into intervals called bins. So initially, the range of attributes are should be partitioned into intervals, and those intervals are called as bins. And these intervals are dynamic in that they may later be further combined during the mining process. And there are 3 binning strategies. First one is equal width binning, and equal frequency binning, and clustering based binning. Whereas in case of equal width binning, interval size of each bin is the same. For example, if you have interval size like this, if you have size of the interval like for income, if you have interval size like this, 10 to 20, 21 to some 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 50, 51 to 60, like this. So these are all comes under the first category, equal width binning. That means the width of the each interval is same, right? So this is the first category, equal width binning. And what is the second strategy? Equal frequency binning. So in equal frequency binning, instead of considering the width of the interval, here we need to consider the number of tuples fall under this particular interval. So here each bin has approximately the same number of tuples assigned to it. For example, if you consider the case of equal width binning, if there are, for example, there are only 2 customers fall under this category. That means there are only 2 customers belonging to the income group 10 to 20. And there are some 10 customers belonging to the income group 21 to 30. And there are 5 customers here, and there are 7 here, there are some 12 here, and so on. So here in equal width binning, we only concentrate on the width of the interval, not the frequency of the tuples fall under the particular interval. So we no need to bother about this. Whereas in case of equal frequency binning, we don't consider the width of the interval. We only consider the frequency of the tuples fall under the category. So we need to make sure that each interval has the same number of tuples under that category. So for example, if I consider the intervals like 10 to 30, 10 to 30, 31 to 35. Why? Because if I have 5 customers or 15 customers under the range of 10 to 30, under the income category of 10 to 30, and I have 15 customers here within 31 to 35, and again from 36 to 45, I found 15 customers belonging to this income group, and again from 45 to some 53, again I am having 15 customers, like this. So if I make discretization process like this belongs to the equal frequency binning. So what here I am doing here, if you consider each interval, the width of the each interval is completely different, right? Completely different. But what matches is the frequency of each interval. So here the second strategy concentrates on the number of tuples or number of customers fall under each interval. That frequency should be same. That is about equal frequency binning. And the third one is clustering based binning. So here clustering is performed to group the neighboring points into the same bin. So if you consider the scatter plot, here if you have income, or if you consider age here, it can be easy. And if you consider income here, for example, here 10, some 20, 30 is there, 40. Similarly, here we are having the age group of starting from 20, 40, 50, like this. If you project the data points as a scatter plot, suppose I get points like this. Suppose here I have a point, which means that there is a customer with the income group of 10 to 20 and at the age of 20 to 40. And here I'm having some customer there, which means that there is a customer purchasing the HDTV with the income group of 20 to 30 and with the age of 40 to 50 like this. Similarly, I'm having some points like this. If I project the data as a scatter plot. So after doing that, based on the method, based on the clustering method we have used, we can group the neighboring points. We can group the neighboring points. That means the nearest points into the same cluster, and we can then announce that this can be considered as a bin. This can be considered as a single bin. Why? Because this particular interval consisting of a cluster. That means what we are doing is by observing all the data points, by making some cluster analysis, we need to perform the binning process. So here is a third one, clustering based binning. So clustering is performed to group the neighboring points into the same bin. So here the binning strategy is based on the binning strategy is by performing the clustering methods. So based on the data points fall under the same interval, by the concept of clustering, we can make the intervals here. So like these three binning strategies we are having. However, the ARGS uses the first category, which is equal with the binning. Let me clear this. So here a 2-day array for each possible bin combination involving both quantitative attributes is created. So for this, what we have to do? Previously, we heard about the 2D grid. So after performing all the 3 steps which we are having, binning is the first step. What are the 3 steps we have discussed? Binning is the first step, finding frequent predicates is the second step, and clustering the association rules is the third step. So after performing the 1 and 2 steps, in the third step we may have the 2D. We may need to go for the 2D grid. 2D grid. But what we are doing after binning in the first step itself, we need to go for the 2D array. Instead of 2D grid, here we need to go for the 2D array. What is the difference between the grid and array? In the sense, both are almost same, but for the case of 2D grid, we have some added additional advantages and added additional features for the 2D grid. So here, after performing equal with binning, in the binning strategy, after making into the dynamic intervals, now we need to consider the 2D array. For each possible bin combination involving both quantitative attributes is created. So here, after that, we need to create the 2D array. Again, we need to involve both quantitative attributes, age and income. Again, as said in the previous example, we need to consider the ranges here. If you consider here 10, some 20, some 40, 50 like this, and here also we can consider the age groups like this. After that, after creating the 2D array involving both quantitative attributes, each array cell holds the corresponding count distribution of the class. So now we need to project the values of the class. Here class in the sense HDTV. Class in the sense HDTV. That means the rule at the right hand side of the rule. Right hand side of the rule is HDTV, buying the HDTV. So we need to project the values here so that each array can hold the corresponding count distribution of the class. So if I mention 5 here, what it means? There are 5 customers belonging to this income category and the age of 20 to 30. Similarly, I may have 10 here, I may have 20 here, 3, 1, maybe 0. Similarly, I can fill all the values of the 2D array. What it mean? What here 0 indicates what? So there is no customer under the age group of 20 to 30. Sorry, under the income group of 20 to 30 and the age group of 20 to 30. So which means that if at all a customer having the age group of 20 to 30 and he may if at all he draws the income of 20 to 30,000, then he may not going to purchase any HD TV. That is the case here. If at all if you consider 9 here, which means that there are 9 customers under the age group of some 10 to 20 and drawing the, so consider this as 20. So under the age group of 20 to 30 and if at all they are drawing the income between 10 to 20, then there is a possibility of buying HDTV, and in such case we are having 9 customers. That means 9 transactions are like this. So the frequency or the support of the transaction is 9 here. So here what happened? Here after preparing the 2D grid, we need to project each value of the transaction, each value of the class under the 2D grid, 2D array. So here each array cell holds the corresponding count distribution of the class. Then each array cell going to hold the corresponding count distribution. So after that, so for doing this, we need to scan the task relevant data once. So we are having the data with us, we are having the database with us, and we need to scan that for making the counts ready. So here the second step is finding the frequent predicate sets. So here the 2D array is scanned to find the frequent predicate sets satisfying the minimum support and minimum confidence. So in the previous case, we have prepared the 2D array. So now what to do is we need to scan this 2D array to identify the frequent predicate sets. How to identify the frequent predicate sets? Based on the support and confidence thresholds given. If at all the threshold given is 3, for example, if the threshold given is 3, so all the item sets greater than or equal to 3. All the cells whose values are greater than or equal to 3 can be considered as a frequent predicate set. So if at all a cell holds the value less than that, or if at all the cell does not satisfy that support threshold, then it can be ignored like this. So here from the values, by scanning the 2D array for these values, we can get the frequent predicate sets. So we can satisfy the second step here. So the 2D array is scanned to find the frequent predicate sets satisfying the minimum support and minimum confidence. So here strong association rules can then be generated from these predicate sets. So this is only the scenario, right? In previous case also, first we need to mine the frequent item sets. So after mining the frequent item sets, we can generate the strong association rules. Here also first we need to mine the frequent predicate sets. So how to mine that frequent predicate sets? By scanning the 2D array which is generated. So after scanning the 2D array, we can mine the frequent predicate sets first, and from the frequent predicate sets we can mine the strong association rules. And here is a third step, that is clustering the association rules. So here the strong association rules mined are then mapped into the 2D grid. Here is the 2D grid. Here is the concept of 2D grid again. So in the first step, in the binning process, we need to perform the discretization based on the first approach, because ARGS follows the equal width binning. So after performing binning, we need to take the 2D array and we need to project all the values into that, and we need to mention the counts based on the occurrence of the class in the given task relevant data set. So by scanning the task relevant data set, we need to fill the 2D array, and after that we need to again scan the 2D array to find out the frequent predicate sets based on the given support and confidence thresholds. And after that, after retrieving or after mining, after identifying the frequent predicate sets, we can mine strong association rules based on that. And here, after mining strong association rules, what is the third step is the clustering the association rules. Here is the here is a process of dynamic discretization of association rules. So why I am again go back to the dynamic discretization means here, if at all the mined association rules, if at all the mined association rules are grouped into the at the same place, we can cluster them. In that way, we can change their discretization values. Let us see that. So first, for this, we need to map these strong association rules into the 2D grid. So here, after mapping, I am getting the points like this. Here I am getting a point, and here I am getting a point, and here I am getting a point. This X marks, this cross marks represents the association, strong association rules mined. So in the previous case, in the 2D array, we have all the data elements projected onto that 2D array. Whereas in case of 2D grid, we have only strong association rules projected onto the 2D grid. So after that, after this projection, here we need to identify, is there any grouping possible among the strong association rules. If you observe here you identify that these association rules, there are 4 strong association rules are there here, and these strong association rules are grouped at the same place. That means clustered at the same place on the grid. So most probably they can be later clubbed together into the same association rule. Let us see that. So here these are the 4 association rules which are projected onto the grid, right? The first one is, if the x consisting, if the x with the age of 34, if the x with the age of 34, and what's that? Income of 31k to 40k. So income of 31k to 40k, he may buy the HTTV. So here is an association rule. And the second rule is, if the person X with the age of 35 and with the income of 31 to 40k, here again this, with the income of 31 to 40k, he may buy the HTTV. Similarly, we are having the rule here and here. If the person X with the age of 34 and the income of 41 to 50k, there is a probability that he purchased the HTTV. Again here, if the person with the age of 35 and with the income of 41 to 41 to 50k, again there is a possibility to purchase the HTTV. Like that, we are having here 4 cross marks formed on the 2D grid. So these 4 rules form a rule cluster on the grid, and these 4 rules can be combined together to form the simpler rule. What is that simpler rule? How can we write that simpler rule? So if the customer is between the age 34 to 50 and he is between the income of 31 to 50k, most probably he can buy a HTTV. So here is the new rule, which is simpler than the previous 4 rules. So instead of writing these 4 rules, we can now go with the single rule. So in this way, here what happened? Here, because the discretization process is dynamic, we can change the interval ranges. So here the interval range from 31 to 40k is there, one interval is there, and 41 to 50k is another interval. Since this second approach is dynamic, we can change the ranges and we can club the intervals like this. So that's why this process is known to be dynamic discretization process. So in this way, we can generate the strong association rules from the second approach. And now, till now, what we have learned from this unit, in the sense, first we need to we learned about the mining process of frequent item sets, and after that we have generated some strong association rules by going through the support and confidence framework. That means the rules which satisfies the minimum support and confidence, those rules are mined by considering as a strong association rules. And after that, we are dealing with the different kind of association rules. So what are those association rules? We are having Boolean association rule, and what is the best example of that? Boolean association rule, that is market basket analysis. So after that Boolean association rules we are having, and multi-level association rules we are having, and multi-dimensional association rules we are having, again quantitative association rules we are having. And there are two methods for handling the Boolean association rules. There are a priori method and FP growth. For those are for mining the frequent patterns, especially for the Boolean association rules. We have already looked into the various other approaches for improving the efficiency of the a priori also. And after that, we have deal with the mining multi-level association rules. And just now we have deal with the mining multi-dimensional association rules. So, till now we are having the concepts of mining strong association rules, how to mine strong association rules. Till now we know that. Now we need to enter into the topic of correlation. So what is that correlation? What is the need of that correlation? We will see. Before that, why we need to go for the correlation? Why can't we stop here with the association? Why need to go for the some other terminology, correlation? Why? Because strong association rules are not necessarily interesting. So it is saying that here strong association rules which are mined till now or may not be interesting all the time. What is this again? Because if the rule is strong, we can blindly follow it. A business analyst can make assumptions or make analytics on that rule by following that rule. Till now we know that. But what it is saying, what here telling is, even though the rule is strong enough, but may not be, it may not be interesting all the times. Some loophole is there. What is that? Why it is not interesting all the time? We will see. We will see that. So here consider the content table, summarizing the transactions with respect to the computer games and the videos. So here, if you observe this table, here out of 10,000 transactions, here there are 4,000 transactions, or 4,000 customers are there.
Madam, 1 minute, madam. Hello.
Depends, sir.
Madam, 127 ఒకసారి.
So here this 4,000 indicates. So here game indicates the number of transactions purchasing the computer game, and here bar is there, right? Game, and on top of it some bar is there, which indicates that number of transactions not purchasing the game. And here video indicates number of transactions purchasing videos. Transactions in the sense number of customers or number of transactions including that item. So here number of transactions excluding the item video. So here is some 2x2 contingency table about the computer game and videos. So here 4,000 indicates there are 4,000 transactions containing both the videos and games. It can be easily get from this, right? So here 3,500 indicates here there are 3,500 transactions which includes only videos but doesn't include any games. And here this means there are total of 7,500 transactions. Out of 10,000, there are total of 7,500 transactions, which includes the videos. And here there are total of 6,000 transactions, which include games. And here a total of 4,000 transactions, which doesn't have the item games. Like this, we're having some 2x2 contingency table. Here 500 means there are 500 transactions, which doesn't include the purchasing of both the videos and games. So out of 1,500 customers doesn't go for either video games or either computer games or videos. So here is a contingency table describing the purchasing patterns of games and videos, and giving the minimum support of 30% and minimum confidence of 60%. So how to get the, if you are having the rule like if a person X purchases the game, then he purchases the video. If you are having a rule like that, how to get the support and confidence? Let me go back to the support and confidence measures. What is the formula for support and confidence? Consider our previous example. This is the very beginning example we have taken for identifying the support and confidence. So what is the, for the given minimum support as 50 and minimum confidence of 50, how can we calculate the support for the transaction if you consider A implies C? What is the support of this transaction? Support is nothing but P of A union B by total number of transactions. That means there is a total of 4 transactions. So out of 4 transactions, how many times A occurs? How many times both A and C occurs? Out of 4 transactions, how many times both A and C occurs?
Times.
Times. So here the support obtained is 50%. Next, confidence. How to get the confidence? That is the conditional probability of C given A. So how many transactions includes A's? There are three transactions containing A. Okay, there are 3 transactions containing A. And how many transactions containing C? Out of 3, 2 transactions containing C. So which is equal to some 66 point something. So here, how can we obtain the support? Support can be obtained by the probability of containing A with respect to the total number of transactions. So we can make 2 by 4 because out of 4 transactions, we are only 2 transactions containing both A and C. Here is one transaction and here is the other. 2 transactions containing both A and C. Now coming to the confidence, this is the support and this is the confidence. Coming to the confidence, so out of all the transactions containing A, we are having only 2 transactions containing C. So that is 66.6%. In the same way, here we need to go for the support and confidence measures. So if you go for this, here the support obtained is 40% for the rule X buys the game, then X buys the videos with the support of 40% and the support of 60%. So what is the minimum support given here? 30%. Since here 30% is, here 40% is greater than the 30%. So this rule satisfies the strongness of the association rules with respect to the support. And coming to the confidence, here 66% is the obtained confidence and the given minimum confidence is 60%. So here also it satisfies the minimum confidence threshold. So by considering the support confidence framework, we can say that this rule is strong association rule. But here, this rule is not strong. Even though this rule is strong, but it is not interesting. It is saying that even though this rule is strong, why? Because it satisfies both the support and confidence framework. But even though this rule is strong, it is not interesting. Why it is not interesting? For example, if you consider this example again, what is the confidence of C here? So not confidence, what is the probability of C here? What is the probability of obtaining C? 2 by 4. Probability in the sense, probability of getting C. So out of 4 transactions, we are having only 2 C's. So here the probability of getting C is 2 by 4, which is nothing but 50%. Here, what is the confidence we are getting for this example? So here the probability of getting C is 50% and confidence of the C is 66.6%, right? So we are considering the confidence of the rule with respect to A. Here, if you are considering the strength of purchasing C directly, it is 50%. So here 50% is less than 66.6%. So it is good enough. This rule is good enough. But whereas in this case, here the probability of purchasing videos is 75%. So what is the probability of purchasing videos? Here we are having 75,000 out of 10,000, 75,000 transactions include videos, which is nothing but 75%. but the confidence of the rule is 66%, which is less than the 75%. It seems that something there is a not interesting pattern. In fact, the games and videos are negatively correlated. In fact, the games and videos are negatively correlated. Why they are negatively correlated? Negative correlation in the sense purchasing of games. That means as the purchasing of games increases, purchasing of videos decreases, or purchasing of videos increases, purchasing of games decreases. But what we can draw from this, if at all a person purchase the game, he can purchase the videos. But here the case is, it is telling that the games and videos are negatively correlated. Why they are negatively correlated? Actually, before this concept, we have this, even though the rule is strong, it is not interesting. Why it is not interesting in the sense, if you observe here, the probability of purely purchasing videos is 75%, which is greater than the confidence we are getting here. So since it is, since the probability of the purchasing directly videos, irrespective of relying on games, if you directly go for videos, it is 75%, which is far greater than this. We can say that this is not interesting. Here the confidence of the rule A implies B in this example, A implies C. Here the confidence of the rule A implies C can be devising in that it only an estimate of the conditional probability of C given A. It does not measure the real strength of the C, real strength of purchasing C. That means it does not go for the probability of getting C. It only go for the conditional probability of getting C when given A. That's why the rule is misleading here. So here, an alternative to the support confidence framework can be useful in mining interesting rules. So how to mine interesting rules? Now our aim is to mine strong association rules which are also interesting. Because in the previous example, in this example, here the rule is strong but not interesting. So how to mine the strong association rules which are also interesting? For that we need to add some other measure along with the support and confidence. So because we are mining strong association rules with the help of support and confidence framework, so along with that support and confidence, we need to add some other measure. That is nothing but a correlation measure. Now we are moving from association mining to correlation analysis. So what is that correlation? What are the correlation measures? What is the advantage of adding that correlation? How we can say that the so and so items are positively correlated and negatively correlated, we will see. So here we are in the concept of mining correlation rules. So the correlation rules are nothing but the strong association rules which are interesting. So for mining strong association rules, we are having support and confidence framework, and now we are having additionally some correlation measure. So along with the support and confidence measure, now we are having correlation measure. If we are considering this measure in mining the association rules, those rules are called as correlation rules. So here we are having 4 correlation measures. We are having 4 correlation measures: lift, chi-square correlation measure, and all confidence is there, and cosine. And this is the familiar one. You have already well familiar with it in your second chapter, right? And coming to the lift measure. So by going through all these lift, chi-square, all confidence, cosine, how to calculate how to assess the correlation between the item sets, let's see. So here is the formula for the correlation among the item sets A and B. Here is the formula for lift. And if at all the item set, if at all the return value is 1, which means that there is no correlation among the item sets. If at all the return value of the equation 1 is less than 1, then there exists some negative correlation among the item sets. If at all it is greater than 1, there exists some positive correlation among the item sets. So what is the what is meant by no correlation, or what is meant by independence relationship? How what is meant by independentness? If I say that A and B are independent, which means that purchasing of A is not influenced by the purchasing of B and vice versa. So they are not dependent, they are not related to each other. So that is the first case. And what is the next case? Negative correlation. What is meant by negative correlation? Purchasing of one item may decrease the purchase of other item. What is meant by positive correlation? Purchasing of one item may increase the purchase of other item. So like this, we are having three categories. There may be no correlation among the item sets, and there, if at all the correlation exists, that correlation may be comes under positive correlation or the negative correlation. If at all there exists a negative correlation, we should ignore that rule. We shouldn't consider that rule. So we only consider the rule if at all there exists a positive correlation, then only it can be useful. If at all, if you consider the milk and bread example, if you have milk and bread example like this, if at all there exists a positive correlation from this rule we can have, then only it can be helpful for us. So if at all there exists a positive correlation, which means that increase of milk may increase the sales of bread also. Increasing sales of milk may increase the sales of bread. So from that positive correlation, so from that association rule, which is having positive correlation, we can get some useful information so that we can perform the steps accordingly as given in the market basket analysis. Like we can organize our store, we can put the items, frequent items together in the store, we can suggest to the customer, etc., etc. So if at all there exists negative correlation, those association rules may not be helpful for us. So here coming to the independence of the item sets. So if you consider A and B as two sets. So if at all A and B are independent, what is the relationship? What is the A union B become? If you consider A and B are two item sets, and given that A, B are independent, then what is the formula for A union B? Then what is the formula for A union B?
P of A plus P of B minus P of A intersection. That's correct.
So here, once the A, B are independent, A intersection B become 5. Right? Did you remember that? If at all two sets are independent, A intersection B become 5. Okay, that is out of the topic, no need to discuss here. Let's come back to the formula. Lift of A comma B is equal to P of A union B by P of A by B. This can also be written as, if you consider this, if you consider this part, it can be written as P of B by A, conditional probability, by P of B as it is. And this can also be written as what it meant by, what is this? This is the confidence of the rule A implies B, and this is the support of the rule, support of B. So the lift of A comma B can also be written as confidence of the rule A implies B by support of B. So this is referred as the lift of the association or correlation rule A implies B. So we can say that from this it evaluates the degree to which the occurrence of one lifts the occurrence of the other. If at all the resultant value is x from this equation, from the equation 1, the value of x is returned. Suppose the result of this equation is x, we can say that purchase of A lifts that means sales of A can lift in the sense can highlight the sales. So purchase of A can lift the sales of B by a factor of x. We can say like that. Okay. And here is an example for calculating the. Here is the example we are having for finding the lift correlation measure, and we will continue this topic in the next class. And in the next class, make sure that all of you please be available with the calcs. You need to make some calculations. Okay, I'm going to wind up this class. Thank you.